by John Deering. It's a Yamal production for BBC Radio Ulster and was first broadcast in February 2014.
Online, on digital and on FM and medium wave.
This is BBC Radio Ulster
and BBC Radio 4.
And you're welcome to The Art Show. I'm Michael Bradley. The first art show of 2015, a year which sees the centenary of the birth of Ewan MacColl, born January 1915. His life and music later in the show, along with the return of the honest Ulsterman. But first, some piano. Proper piano. Intermezzo in A major, opus 118, number 2, by Brahms, played by Nadine Fiorentini. Italian name, but a Donegal woman. That's from a CD called, simply, Piano Recital. She was a performer at the Dublin International Piano Competition in 2012. She was the highest placed Irish competitor, and she selected music by Brahms and Liszt, as well as work by Irish composer Eilish Farrell for the CD. Nadine, welcome to The Art Show. How are you?
Thanks very much. I'm very well.
Congratulations on the CD, commissioned by the Dublin International Piano Competition, which you did very well in 2 years back. What are your memories of performing there?
Oh, it was a huge honour to be able to represent my country, and I was just thrilled with the response I got, and to be able to receive my prize from President Higgins at the final then in the National Concert Hall. It was just
a dream. I've seen a photograph of you with me. Yes, it's very impressive looking. You started at a very young age playing the piano, but would you say it was serious then at the age of 6? Or were you just sent along to piano lessons?
It was my mum and dad sent me off to lessons. I first began with Giovanni Fiorentini, my great aunt, and then I later went to the McGinley School where I worked with Ray and Ruth. And I would say I always enjoyed it, and I loved the buzz of performing in the Derry Fish and Mobile Fish, Carndona Fish.
Did you have a lot of medals from the fishes?
A few, yeah.
Okay. So, but at what stage did it kick in that you were going to be serious?
Probably around 4th year in school. I started taking it more seriously, and then I auditioned for the academy then when I was 16, when I was doing my leaving cert. I was lucky enough to be accepted by John O'Connor and Therese Fahey, and then I began the undergraduate degree there in September.
And that's when it gets serious,
That's when it gets serious, yeah.
You very kindly agreed to play for us this evening on the show, which is where I get embarrassed because it's not a Steinway, it's a Yamaha upright. It's I suppose standard for a radio studio. But can I talk to you about pianos? What would the difference between, say, your favourite piano and the one that you're going to perform for us on tonight?
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you for inviting me here. And any opportunity to play is fantastic, so I'm grateful for that.
What makes a good piano?
I would always look for something that has a really good singing quality and then a rich bass as well, and then the action is different on every piano, so I like something that you have to work at, but then that's not too hard either.
So it's not just a matter of playing the keys. You have to adapt your playing style to suit the piano and possibly the room as well. Yeah,
you have to adapt to the acoustic as well. Everywhere's different, every piano's different, so you just have to listen carefully and then be able to change. You're
going to play for us a Chopin Nocturne, which you played in the National Concert Hall in Dublin recently. You're going to be returning there I was going to say in the new year, but in a couple of months' time, yeah?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to doing a chamber music recital there. It's always nice to be able to work with other people as well, because piano can be quite solitary sometimes, all the hours you spend yourself in the practice room.
The loneliness of a long-distance piano player.
So yeah, I'll be in there in March with a violinist and a soprano as well.
And you're going to be playing the piano there, which you have already told me is your favourite instrument.
Yeah, it's a beautiful Steinway, so it is. It's like velvet. Okay. So just being able to get the opportunity to play there is a dream.
I wish we had one here, but you're very kindly, as it says, you're going to play our upright Yamaha, and I'm really looking forward to this. You're going to play a nocturne, Chopin?
Nocturne in D flat major, yeah, opus 27.
Okay. Nadine Fiorentini, thanks for being on the Art Show, and thank you for
Thanks very much for
agreeing to go on now and play our piano.
Not at all. Thank you.
Nadine Fiorentini and Chopin's Nocturne in D-flat major, opus 27, performed from memory without any sheet music in front of her in the BBC Radio 5 studio for the art show. And Nadine's album Piano Recital is now available.
The sea is wide.
Songs have their own ways of crossing oceans. Folk Club sails the airwaves with a cargo of songs and stories, those that have happened and new ones that dream of what is yet to come.
Oh, I'll kiss the lips of my own.
Listeners around the world know music's universal language, and when words run out, the beauty of a melody does the talking for us. Folk Club with me, Colm Sands, Saturday nights at 8 o'clock on BBC Radio Ulster, or listen again online.
It's 18 minutes to 7. This is the Art Show with Michael Bradley. I will endeavour to continue its tradition of subverting tradition and expectation, as well as bringing to the fore the best of local and international writing and art. The words of the artist Dr. Greg McCartney, who's the new editor of The Honest Ulsterman, the online version of the famous literary magazine. He'll be combining it with his current role as editor of Abridged magazine, the poetry and arts publication. Greg McCartney, welcome to the Art Show.
Hello, Michael.
It was another Derry man, James Simmons, who started The Honest Ulsterman in 1968. So there's a full circle happening here, really.
There is. It's a nice kind of symmetry. I mean, it was, I suppose, the Journal of Record, to put it as in terms of sort of Irish art or Irish poetry, sort of literary magazines. It was, as it said at the beginning, a handbook for revolution. In the spirit of the times.
1968 being the big year of revolution.
Yeah, in the spirit of the times. Yeah. It saw itself very much as the future of rock and roll, I suspect, and it was designed to at the beginning to offer people, I suppose, a new contemporary take on literature.
Yeah. It was, I suppose, of its time. The print edition closed in 2003, but it was revived online in April, passed by the Verbal Arts Centre, who've given you now the job of editing. Why was it important to bring it back, in your view?
I think it was a piece of, I suppose, the collective consciousness of the literary scene. It had basically 30 years of history behind it, and I think it was nice to see how a contemporary version of it would fare. As you say, it was the handbook of a revolution, so to speak. Well, a million revolutions, both good and bad, tiny and huge, have taken place since.
Do you feel the history of it looking over your shoulder as you start to edit the first edition?
It is there, definitely. People have memories of it. Lots of people were in it. Lots of people had opinions about it. So it's kind of, it's definitely sort of there in the shadows, people.
But it's online, of course, which is, the medium for 2015. It's, many publications are online. Will that make a difference in any way, in any sense? Because I think Abridged, your other publication, is very much a physical publication, physical paper.
Yes, Abridged is I suppose, it's meant to be an art object, yes, as well as a magazine. It's not just words on a page, it's how the words are on the page, what they're on the page with, how the page is designed, etc. It's a kind of curated space, as this will be. Though it will be more, I suppose, sort of eclectic than the Abridged. The Abridged is very much I think a kind of vision thing. I mean, we've been described as, I suppose, the Joy Division of the magazine, sort of poetry magazine, but so which is fair enough in one way.
Yeah, it's interesting though that you're talking in the context there of rock and roll, I suppose, because you're accepting submissions from people who possibly wouldn't necessarily think that they would be submitting to The Honest Ulsterman in the past. you're looking for new writers.
Absolutely. We're looking for everyone, whether it's sort of your first poem or your sort of 1,001st. It's there to sort of, as well as occasionally sort of highlight sort of people who we all know. It's there to give a platform for people who may not be as well known, or who sort of are just at the beginning of their career, and it's their poetry, literature, critical writing, anything really, sort of also art. There'll be sort of art in it. The great thing about it being online is that you can have lots of stuff.
And it will be free as well, of course.
It will be all free. Both the Honest Ulsterman and the Abridged is free. You can get details of where you, if you want to submit from the website pages.
Yeah.
If you Google Abridged and Google the Honest Ulsterman, it's easier to remember than sort of web addresses.
Certainly is. It's easy to find anything now. Dr. Greg McCurtain, editor of the Honest Ulsterman and Abridged, thanks for being on the Art Show.
Thank you.
It is 12 minutes to 7 o'clock.
I found my love on the gasworks croft, dreamed a dream by the old canal, kissed my girl by the factory wall. Dirty old town, dirty old town. Heard a siren from the docks, saw a train set the night on fire, smelt the spring on the smoky wind. Dirty old town, dirty old town.
Dirty Old Town, of course, recorded by the man who wrote it, Ewan MacColl. This month marks the centenary of the folk singer's birth as James Miller in Salford, the town of Dirty Old Town, of course. There's a new book out this month, Legacies of Ewan MacColl, which is based on the last interviews he gave before his death 25 years ago. Brian Mullen has been looking through it for the Art Show. Brian, welcome to the show. Is he a good subject for a book like this?
He is, especially at this time, as it's 100 years since he was born, and everybody has an opinion about him. Even if they've never heard him sing, they've heard the songs, they have an opinion about the songs, and he was a very opinionated man himself, and his own words are in here, but then people are analysing what he meant, what he said, what he thought he said, and how that all fits into the context of a folk song revival.
From my limited knowledge of him, I know that he was a socialist, but I also think that he sort of came to music a bit late in his life, didn't he?
In a sense, he came to public music a bit late in his life. He was raised in a family, Scots they were. His
Millers.
Father, the Millers were from Scotland. Even they moved to Salford, and he was raised in a house which there was plenty of music. His mother was a traditional singer, and his father did the clubs. He had an act that he took round the clubs, so he had music all the time in the house. But he started out as a Marxist political agitator, writing plays to be done on strikes. In workers' canteens and stuff like that, very much committed to a socialist idea of the world. And it was from that he developed songs to sing at picket lines, and songs for miners, songs for anybody that was on strike, from his history that the songs he had heard at home. So then when there came an opportunity, when the theatre workshop, which he worked with Joan Little, they moved to London and they became an overnight success.
He was married to her as well.
He was married to her, but I think they might have been divorced at that stage because he refused to go to London because he thought that was selling out, was taking the plays to the middle classes. He wanted to still take them to the picket lines, to the people. So then he got the idea that to sing the people's songs, give them back a means of interpreting their lives through a tradition of song was a good thing to do.
So, as opposed to other songwriters who write songs because, they have to write songs, or who write songs, because they want a hit, it was kind of almost like a tool. Each song was like a tool for him.
The music was a tool, yeah. He thought that with popular music, the invasion of the mass media and all that, popular music was taking over people's idea of what music was, that music was a commodity to be consumed. But he noticed that when people were, say, on strike or agitating for better pay, the songs that they parodied were the older style of songs, not the pop songs of the modern day. They didn't use that format. So he decided that to get the socialist message across, he would use the songs, the styles, the inheritance of the people, and write new words and new ideas into that structure.
But Dirty Old Town wouldn't be in that kind of thing. Dirty Old Town is like
it's a jazz song. It really is. And yet, I imagine he wrote it for a play. I can't really remember. I read through this book, and it's a big book. It took me a long time to read it. I'll have to read it again to assimilate all the facts. But he wrote it fairly early, in the 40s, I think.
49, I think, yeah.
And it probably would have written it for a play, and it would have had something to say in that context. And he himself would have come up through that whole jazz age.
The book, Legacies of Ewan MacColl, it's, as I said, it's based on interviews with him. Do you think that he is painting his own picture? Is there any revisionism going on here, or do you think it's fairly genuine, like a confessional thing?
I think to a certain extent, MacColl was always on stage when he was talking to people. He was always interpreting the world and interpreting himself. And the great thing about this is Giovanni Vacca, the fellow that did the interviews with him, he did them as a student for part of his degree.
Right.
And the first one, which is all about MacColl and his history. And then the second one, when he'd got the degree, he came back and talked to him again in a more analytical way, saying, well, what were you trying to do? What do you think you did? And what you did and what you thought you were doing are maybe two different things. So there's a lot of footnotes saying MacColl recalls this wrongly. This actually happened in such a place, and that's the wrong man he's talking about there. It's actually this man. And then there's a couple of other essays with people saying what he meant to various, say, workers' movements in Italy, where apparently he was very, very big, influenced a lot of the socialist thinking in Italy from the 60s on, especially.
By what you're saying there, this does sound like a proper academic study of him, even though it's based on his interviews. We're not talking, like a showbiz biography here.
We're not
it's
talking
a bit of serious
One
work.
Direction, the story so far, no.
I can't talk about Ewan MacColl without talking about the songs. I mentioned Dirty Old Town there. The other one that people would always associate with him, well, there's a couple that people always associate with him. One of them is First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. And the connection with Peggy Seeger, who he later married as well. There was a 20-year age difference, I think. But he wrote it for her. But it's not quite as simple as that, is it?
He wrote it for her because apparently she was an American. She was doing a tour, and she had a minute and a half or 2 minutes to fill, and she needed a song. So over the phone in 10 minutes, so he says,
yes.
he came. Then I wrote.
Yeah.
He came up with this song, and really thought nothing more of it until it started to pay the rent.
Yeah, whenever it was a hit for
Roberta Fleck.
But you see, there's something about The First Time I Ever Saw Your Face. Anyone who hears the title and he realises he wrote this for the woman he loved, you think it's it's like almost, it's a big song. It's an expression of the true love in his heart. It sounds like it was something not quite a hack job, but something that just fulfilled the purpose.
It fulfilled the purpose, but at the same time, I remember hearing him somewhere else talking about it. He was saying what he was trying to do was do a song about love that wasn't in the pop tradition of Moon, June, Spoon. It was full of real, vibrant feelings, the feelings that you really feel, not what the songwriters from Tin Pan Alley tell you should feel.
And also The Shoals of Herring, which he wrote, but which a lot of people assume is an old traditional song, either Irish or Scottish.
A lot of people think it's an old traditional song, and it's even been collected under the name The Shores of Erin. So I don't think the people were listening too closely to the words when they picked up that as a name for it, because it is actually about fishing. And it's been particularly among travelling people. It's been very, very often collected, and people will say, oh, that's an old song, we've had that in our family for generations.
With our nets and gear we're faring on the wild and wasteful ocean. It's there on the deep that we harvest and reap our bread, as we hunt the bonny shows of heron.
But Ewan MacColl wrote it, what, in the 40s, 50s?
He wrote it in the 60s, I think it was, for a series of what he called radio ballads,
oh, yes,
which was people talking about their work, and then songs that he had written or songs that were from that tradition of their work. And that was groundbreaking in the way that before that, when they had programmes on the BBC about people's work, they got people, they interviewed them, they wrote stuff down, they got actors to act it,
right.
maybe put on a Geordie accent to use the people's words, but I think they were a bit afraid of putting the ordinary people on, that they would be maybe incomprehensible, that they would be inarticulate, and they would be overawed by the media. Turned out not to be the case.
Is it a good book?
It's a great book, it's very enjoyable, and it's interesting to see right up until the very end. I mean, he died the following year after he did the second interview, that he was thinking about it all the time and trying to make a narrative out of his own life.
Okay. Brian Mullen, it's called The Legacies of Ewan MacColl, and of course, you know, we've talked about it, and I can't let this go without playing Peggy Seeger and The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face.
The first time ever I saw your face, I thought the sun rose in your eyes, and the moon and the stars were the gift you gave to the dark and empty skies, my love, to the dark and empty skies. The first time ever I kissed your mouth, I felt the earth move in my hand, like the trembling heart of a captive bird that was there at my command, my love.
Peggy Seeger, of course, First Time Ever I Saw Your Face. And that's all from the Art Show this evening. Before I go, here are some things you may wish to experience over the weekend. It's your last chance to see the Potter Stephen Farnan's exhibition, Making 20 Years On, finishes in the Marketplace Theatre next Saturday, the 10th. Two great music films showing in the Black Box Sunday afternoon as part of the Out to Lunch Festival. The possibilities are endless. The documentary about singer Edwyn Collins is immediately followed at 2 o'clock, immediately followed at 4 by a film about Dexys Midnight Runners, or Dexys as they're called. Film's called Nowhere Is Home. And composer Philip Hammond premieres his new piano concerto in the Ulster Hall Monday afternoon with the Ulster Orchestra. If you can't get there in person, it's live BBC Radio 3 at 2 o'clock. Stand by for Blascool with Lynette Fay. The Art Show returns on Tuesday, 6:30. From me, Michael Bradley, bye-bye.
On 92 to 95 FM and 13.